So Cenk Uygur had RFK Jr. on his show, and it was a really long interview that they did. It was over an hour and 20 minutes here, as you can see. And they got into a number of different issues. Now, on some things, there was broad agreement, right? So on the issue of money in politics, RFK says a lot of the things that Cenk says. Now, whether or not RFK is actually committed to the kind of solutions that he should be, I think is a separate question. If you take him at face value, he is in favor of a constitutional amendment to get money out of politics, and he believes this sincerely. But he says a lot of things that ultimately are questionable. But anyway, I digress. If I'm taking him at face value, on money in politics, him and Cenk agree. Okay. There was an interesting portion, which we're not going to cover here, but it was about basically environmental policy and climate change, and Cenk sort of presses him on it, because RFK says this really, really dumb thing that he also said to Crystal, and we covered that at the time, where he says, the answer to pollution and messing up the environment and climate change, the answer to that is a free market. It's having an actual perfect free market system. So in other words, he doesn't use the term regulation. He doesn't view it as a job of the government to police the externalities of the free market. His answer is, if you just actually make the market more free, then you'll have less pollution, then you'll have less destruction of the environment, then you'll have less climate change. And to Cenk's credit, he really does press him on that, because Cenk's point is like, well, no, it's really like capitalism and the free market that brings about a lot of the externalities and the pollution and the environmental destruction. The answer is regulation. But he's kind of being kind to him too, and he says, if what you mean by a perfectly free market is more regulation, then you're right, but if that's not what you mean, then you're wrong, kind of. So anyway, go watch the whole interview. It's interesting from beginning to end, but there's a lot of things he says, of course, that get under my skin. They debated vaccines. That's another part that we're not going to cover here, but that we could have covered here. And suffice to say, it's just one of those issues where anytime he makes a claim, and it sounds bold, it sounds kind of extreme, it sounds kind of out there, and you go fact check it, like every single time he's just wrong, right? And that's why the rest of his positions and the rest of his ideology and the rest of his commentary comes into question, because every time he says something, if I'm like, that sounds weird, let me look that up, it's immediately, it's just like, wrong. So now again, we're not going to get into that here, but let's get to this portion where they end up debating Gaza. This is probably their biggest disagreement, not just in terms of substance, but also in terms of tone, how they start to really separate, and Cenk gets frustrated. So let's dive into it and we'll break it down. Here we go.
So then I look at your what you say about Gaza, and I want to tear out all my hair. Okay, so so help me try to understand what you're thinking here. You talk in such harsh language about.
We go from being citizens to being subjects. It is.
So help me try proposals, money in politics proposals alone. You've got me very interested, right? So then I look at your what you say about Gaza, and I want to tear out all my hair. Okay, so. So help me try to understand what you're thinking here. You talk in such harsh language about the Palestinians, talking about bombing them to denazify them. Last I checked, you still were not for a ceasefire after 37,000 dead. You talk of Palestinians oftentimes as terrorists. It's perplexing. So
wait a minute. No, I don't talk about Palestinians as terrorists. I don't believe that. I consider myself extremely pro-Palestinian.
See, this is the kind of shit that I can't handle it. Like, don't play hide the ball. Don't be a fucking weasel. Own your position, bro. Every debate I've ever seen you have on the issue of Israel and Gaza, you go back to the same talking points as the Likud talking points, as the Zionist talking points, and you always, always, always side against the Palestinians and with the Israelis. Don't give me that. If you're gonna take this position, at least rep it honestly. Yes, I am pro-Israel. I am pro-Zionist. I do not agree with the Palestinians. I think they're wrong. Don't give me, I'm very pro-Palestinian as you're about to proceed to shit on the Palestinians for 10 minutes straight. For the love of God, stop with the Weasley bullshit. If you're going to take the position, fucking take it. Oh, I can't stand this. Oh, it's so dishonest.
And by the way, my dad there was a Palestinian who was involved in the murder of my father. He didn't kill him, but he was involved in the ambush. And then my brother, and pled guilty. My brother then was hijacked by Black September, by the Palestinian group 5 years later, and his plane was brought to Yemen and blown up, and, with the terrorists demanding the release of the person who was convicted of my father's murder. When Sirhan was convicted, my family wrote a letter to Judge Walker asking him not to apply the death penalty to Sirhan, and as you know, I've been to meet Sirhan. I fought very hard for his release. And, I go by facts. I don't go by passion. I don't go by prejudice. I don't go by pressure. I just don't see how, and I think Hamas is the villain. The Palestinian people are not the villain. Hamas is a terrorist group. It's a terrorist group that is committed to the annihilation of Israel.
You know who else is a terrorist group? The IDF. He would never say that. Ever.
Israel, Hamas has been attacking Israel with rockets, 2,000 rockets a year since 2006.
And what has Israel been attacking Gaza with? What is it, with balloons and confetti? Is that what they're doing? Why is the death toll among Palestinians way higher than the death toll among the Israelis? What are they bombing them with love and Blockbuster gift cards? I don't know where that came from, but anyway, there you have it. All right, let's continue.
It ended the invasion October 7th. I can't conceive that any other nation in the world that if they were attacked in that way with that kind of savage brutality by a government or a group that is sworn to the annihilation of their country, that wants nothing else, that will not negotiate for anything else. I don't say how you leave them ruling Gaza and then try to rebuild it. And I want to look. I have a tremendous compassion for what's happening there now. Every death there is heartbreaking, and I think all of us feel that way. But it was not. It was Hamas. I blame Hamas, not Israel.
This is the guy who considers himself anti-war. And listen to him talk about other conflicts where the U.S. is directly at war. And he would never use this kind of logic. He would never be like, every death that's brought about, even by direct bombing of the United States, is somehow the fault of the enemy that didn't do it in this instance, right? He would never say that. But when it comes to Israel, that's his line. Literally everybody who's dead is your fault. Okay.
That's where you're wrong. Not because Hamas is innocent. No, you blaming Hamas makes sense. They did October 7th. Everyone agrees. Great sympathy to Israel. 1,200 people killed in sometimes a brutal fashion. 34 kids killed. So you go after Hamas, I agree with you, okay? But when Israel kills 30 times as many civilians, there's some point you can't keep saying, oh, Hamas made me keep killing all of your civilians. Golly.
He will keep saying that. He will keep saying that, Cenk. That's exactly what he's going to do.
It was all an accident. I'm the most moral army on earth. I just happened to kill 30 times the number of civilians that Hamas did.
By the way, what RFK does is he denies the Israelis agency. Stop and think about that. Hamas is directly responsible for everybody that they kill, right? They have agency. They're responsible for that. But Israel and the IDF, they're not responsible for any of the people they kill. They're mindless, reactive drones. And they have zero agency. All right, let's get... And also, by the way, just one more point on this. I hate it, and you get this from RFK, you get this from other extreme Zionists. I hate this notion that everybody who dislikes Israel, who is a Palestinian, it is simply because of blind hatred and anti-Semitism, and they're toxic people, and they're bad people, and they're nefarious people. It is the most glib, simplistic, idiotic view of all time. So none of the hatred of the Israelis among the Palestinians, none of it is because of the occupation? None of it. None of it. So there's no real world material consequences that have led to that reaction. It's all ideological. It's all, the evil education system teaching them about how terrible the Jews are, right? There is no material core of it that helps breed and lead to the hatred. And it's especially ironic because, of course, as we all know, this idea, we're going to eradicate Hamas, they're creating like triple or quadruple the number of Hamas because they've killed so many innocent civilians, creating more Hamas. So the fact that he never acknowledges there's a material core to this and that it's not all ideological and these people are pure bad and these people are pure good, he's never going to get to the truth thinking that way. And maybe it's because he doesn't want to get to the truth.
So at what point do you say, this isn't defending yourself anymore? All of Gaza is destroyed. We all have eyes, we have ears. We say that about Biden. Democrats say, oh no, he's a dynamo. Brother, we got eyes and ears. We can see that the guy can barely talk and walk, right? The MAGA guys say, oh, Trump never lies. Brother, we got eyes and ears. The guy lies all the time. You look at Gaza, they leveled the place. It's gone. And like 85% of them are homeless now. At what point do you draw a line, Bobby, and go, God damn it, that's enough. Stop killing them.
I would draw the line when Hamas lays down its weapons.
I'm going to shove my foot in a meat grinder. I'm going to put my ball sack in a waffle iron. Listening to this, Cenk just explained perfectly how innocent civilians are getting the brunt of the IDF assault. And his response is, Hamas. Hamas needs to lay down all their weapons. So you are admitting, RFK, you are in favor of collective punishment against a civilian population, which is a war crime. Because you are blaming the civilians, they're the ones taking the brunt of it, you're blaming them for what Hamas does. You are admitting you are pro-war crimes now. Mr. I'm the anti-war candidate.
So if Hamas doesn't lay down their weapons, now innocent Palestinian civilians held captive by both the Israel occupation for 57 years, brutal occupation. Okay, hold on. And Hamas, let's say Hamas.
Wait, no.
Okay, so now, but Israel gets to kill as many Palestinians as they want for ad infinitum?
No.
Yes, that's exactly what he's saying.
Because, there's still a couple of Hamas guys left. Well, how do we know when all the Hamas guys are gone? So are you okay with 370,000 dead as long as there's a Hamas battalion left?
Yes, he is.
Number one, Israel is not occupying Gaza.
Oh, I hate this guy so much, bro. Oh, I hate him so much. This is such, again, to go back to the Weasley bullshit. I don't know what percentage of the people who make this point actually believe it, but I can't imagine it's very high. Because what they mean is, there are no Israeli settlements within Gaza proper. That's the point he's making. Okay, so there's no occupation there. Okay, well, how is Israel controlling Gaza? Oh, that's right. They control all of their borders. They control the food, the fuel, the water, the electricity. It's effectively an open-air prison. There's no airport there. They can't go out past a certain line to go fishing. They have to stay within a certain line because Israel won't let them go beyond that. They control everything about Gaza. But he views that since there are no illegal settlements within Gaza proper, in the same way that there are settlements within the West Bank, therefore that's not an occupation. They have no sovereignty. They have no independence. They have no human rights. And Israel controls all the borders, all the food, fuel, water, electricity, etc. What do you want to call that? What do you want to call that? Oh, Jesus.
Israel left Gaza in 2006, and Hamas took over Gaza in 2006.
But they don't control their borders, they don't control their water, their electricity, their power.
Right, and first of all, their water comes from desalination plants that are local. Israel has provided fuel from those plants.
Literally every single bullshit Israeli propaganda talking point about how nice and magnanimous we are to the Palestinians, he chugs it whole.
Gaza, but Hamas blaming Israel for turning them into an open-air prison is like it's like the guy who kills his parents and pleads to the court for mercy because he's an orphan.
But Hamas and Palestinians are different, though. You can ignore everything Hamas says, but the Palestinians are definitely occupied. Israel has been brutally oppressing them for 57 years.
Wait a minute, Jay.
I mean, are they free? They're not free, are they, Bobby? They're definitely not free.
People in Gaza? Or Palestinians?
Palestinians in Gaza and West Bank, not remotely free.
But Palestinians, there are 1.3 or 2.3 million Palestinians in Israel. It's 17% of the population.
Okay, so why not make all the Palestinians in Gaza and all the Palestinians in the West Bank full citizens of Israel tomorrow? There's a lot of Arab Israelis. Okay, let's take all of the Palestinians in Gaza and the Palestinians in the West Bank and tomorrow immediately turn them into full Israeli citizens who can vote, who have a say, who have self-determination. You're in favor of that then, right, RFK? Right. Oh, wait a second. You're not. Isn't that weird? Israel is they have Arabs there. They're so kind and they're so open-minded and they believe in democracy. So then why are we debating? Why are we having this conversation? Allow all the Palestinians to become full Israeli citizens. I'll wait.
All the rights of anybody else in Israel. They can vote. They can serve on the Knesset.
That is not true. The Arabs do not have all the same rights. They do not have all the same rights.
And
but how about the 5.5 million that have no freedom, that are in the West Bank and Gaza Strip being...
Those don't count, Cenk, for reasons and stuff and things and Hamas. And did I mention Hamas?
Prisons for decade after decade after decade, using the excuse of, well, there's one Hamas guy that says Israel should be annihilated, so we're going to occupy 5.5 million of you. Well, there's always a jerk who's going to say, oh, I think Israel should be annihilated. I think this, and not only that, it's a greatly ironic argument that, hey, Hamas doesn't want Israel to be a state. And then Israel turns around and goes, I'm not going to let the Palestinians be a state. So aren't they worse than Hamas? Because it's not theoretical. They are literally preventing the Palestinians from being a state. That is what you say. Hamas is so terrible because they would prevent Israel from being a state. Well, Israel's already doing that to the Palestinians.
Yeah, so the Palestinians have been offered a state repeatedly.
Even the best proposal that was made It was described by top Israeli government officials as, quote, less than a state. We're talking about Bantustans. That's effectively what it was. Now, you can say, hey, in retrospect, knowing everything that happened since, they should have accepted the Bantustans and then tried to, basically move in the right direction from there. I think that's a fair argument. I think that's perfectly reasonable. But let's not pretend, as RFK's about to, Israel gave the Palestinians everything they wanted and they said no. Well, hold on now. You're talking about when they have direct talks back and forth where there's a massive power asymmetry. But what about, like, every other year at the UN, they have a direct vote on this. Let's have a Palestinian state along the 1967 borders. And the General Assembly, the overwhelming majority of nations say, yes, let's do a Palestinian state along the 1967 borders. And it's always the US and Israel that veto it and block it and go, hell no. So who's really preventing a state? A state along reasonable lines. Not less than a state, not Bantustans, not some bullshit one-on-one negotiation where there's a massive power imbalance and asymmetry. An actual, objective, fair, practical approach. Who's blocking that, RFK?
1922 and 1930. Are you going to let me finish?
All right, go ahead.
Because you just went on a rampage.
Go ahead.
Okay. 1922, 1937, 1947, 1973, 1967, 1973. Each time they were offered, Israel offered them, the United Nations offered them, the League of Nations offered them, Britain offered them of their own state in exchange for peace. 90% of the Palestinian mandate of Palestine was given to the Arabs. Only 10% was given to the Jews. So after
wait, in 1948, no, there was...
Yeah, that's not true at all. No. In 1948, with the partition plan, Jews were a minority of the population, and they were offered about 55% of the land. Yeah, what? Oh, God. See, this is what I'm talking about. He plays so fast and loose with the facts. He does this on every single issue. And then you go and you look it up and you're like, you're just wrong. Like, you're just saying things that are untrue.
They got half the land and they were only a third of the population.
In 1922.
1922.
Yeah, 1922.
But I mean, 1922, it was all Palestinians. So it's like saying, oh, okay, we're going to take 10% of your land. Are you okay with it? They say, well, no, I don't want you taking 10% of my land. Then it became 50%. Now it's like nearly 75%.
I mean, you go...
Cenk's 100% right.
You want to go back.
But
the Palestinians sided with the Ottoman Empire, fought with the Ottoman Empire. Mufti al-Husseini, who was the head of the Palestinians, was running the Arab Legion in the Ottoman army. The Ottoman army lost the war, and its empire was broken up. Under Woodrow Wilson's pressure, the League of Nations said, okay, all of these lands of the Ottoman Empire that were once run by the Ottomans are going to be divided up and given to the local people who live there. The British came in and said, can the Palestinians and Jews live together in one land? First of all, the Jews had fought with Britain. They fought with the Allied.
By the way, the British Empire promised that land to like 3 or 4 different people, right? So there's a big problem with the way that they approach this to begin with.
The Arabs had fought against them. When you lose a war, there's a consequence. Britain made a promise to the Zionists, you will get your own nation. They didn't give them everything they promised. They gave 90% of Palestine to the Arabs, and they left a little sliver, 10%, for the Jews. The Jews started their own nation in 1948. The United Nations approved it. And
then what happened? Oh, that's right, the Nakba. Oh, that's right. You had the Zionists basically, doing a savage, brutal crusade across the land and displacing and killing countless Palestinians. Like he's glossing over that one. But
the Arabs said no. The Arabs were offered their country. The Jews were offered theirs. So
he makes it seem like if he was in their shoes, he'd be like, sure, take it all. We'll give away 55% of the land. The UN was like brand new. It was one of the first things they did. So for them to come about and then say, okay, we're going to take 55% of your land and you're going to accept it. Of course they're going to be like, no, I'm not sure I agree with that, right? But now, by the way, the irony is all these years later, the Palestinians are like, okay, the facts on the ground are what they are, but let's try to get a state the same way that the Israelis got a state. They went to the UN. So now we're going to the UN. And the UN in the General Assembly says, yeah, we're going to give you a state along the 1967 borders. And again, it's the US and Israel blocking the same path for a Palestinian state that brought about the state of Israel. Okay. All right. I don't know how much more of this we could do.
Since then, so just let me finish. On numerous occasions since, Israel has offered with Ehud Barak, with Yasser Arafat, everything that the Palestinians had previously asked for, which
totally untrue. We just went through this. Quote, less than a state is what they were offered, even with the best offer. The people who are really blocking it at the UN are the Israelis and the US, because they don't want to do a state along the 1967 borders, because Israel wants more. They want more. And also, if you look at the Likud freaks, if you look at the far-right lunatics, they'll be even more honest, and they'll tell you, we want a greater Israel. It's not just the Palestinian territories we want. We want to go beyond that.
Up until 1993, the official position of the entire Arab League and the Palestinians is that Israel could not have a state, even the size of a postage stamp. So,
but they do have a state, Bobby,
right,
and the Palestinians don't.
All right, let's just cut it off there. This goes on, but Jesus Christ. I can't deal with RFK, man. I just can't deal with him on this. He goes right back to the same fucking Zionist talking point playbook, and I'll end this with the same thought I always have when it comes to RFK on this issue. Mr. Anti-War. Sure does talk like Mossad has some dirt on him. But it's all right. We can look back in his history and see. At least he never knew and hung out with Bill Cosby or Harvey Weinstein or Jeffrey Epstein, and didn't write a book where he talked about cheating on his wife with dozens and dozens of women, and then his wife later on went to kill herself. And, oh, wait, all those things did happen? Yeah, maybe they do have some dirt on him. It's just speculation. But I don't know. You tell me what you think of it. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.